I'm Elena, and I am so glad you've decided to join me today for the first part of a special two-part series designed to tackle one of the most important steps toward achieving true natural fluency. We often focus so much on grammar rules, on building a large vocabulary, and on perfecting our pronunciation. And while all of those things are absolutely essential, there is another layer to fluency that often gets overlooked in traditional learning. I'm talking about reactions. Those small, immediate, almost automatic responses we give in everyday conversations. Think about it. When someone pays you a compliment, you have a ready made phrase like, "Oh, that's so kind of you to say." These aren't complex sentences, but they are the bedrock of natural flowing conversation. They signal understanding, they build rapport, and they make you sound less like someone who is translating in their head and more like someone who is truly present and engaged in the moment. The challenge is that these reactions are rarely taught in textbooks. That is exactly what we are going to work on today. In this two-part series, we are going to journey through 100 different common situations. In this video, part 1, we will focus on the first 50 situations, covering a huge range of topics from everyday pleasantries and expressing opinions to reacting to news and beginning to navigate difficult social moments. In part 2, we'll pick up right where we leave off and cover the final 50 situations. I encourage you not to be a passive listener today. Please be an active participant. When I describe a situation, truly imagine yourself in it. When I offer a reaction, say it out loud. Repeat it. The more you practice, the more these phrases will be there for you when you need them. Are you ready to transform the way you interact in English? I hope so. Let's begin our journey. We'll start with the very bedrock of daily social life, everyday pleasantries and positive interactions. These are the small, polite exchanges that allow our interactions to be smooth, friendly, and positive. Getting these right with natural warmth is the first step to sounding truly fluent and approachable. Our first situation is responding to a greeting from a stranger. Imagine you're walking your dog in the park early in the morning as the sun is coming up. Another person walking their dog approaches, makes brief, friendly eye contact, smiles, and says a simple, "Morning." Of course, a simple good morning back is perfectly fine. But to add a touch of warmth, you could say, "Morning, you too," which acknowledges their good wish and returns it. An even friendlier option is, "Good morning. Beautiful day, isn't it?" This uses the shared context of the lovely weather to build a fleeting connection. Or you could comment on the shared activity. "Morning, looks like our dogs are eager to say hello." The nuance here is subtle but important. Saying "morning" you too is efficient and friendly, whereas commenting on the day or the dogs is warm and personalizes the interaction. One thing you'll want to avoid is simply nodding or looking away, which can be perceived as unfriendly. A full, formal, "Good morning to you as well, sir," would also sound far too stiff in this casual context. The goal is always to match their friendly energy. Let's move to our second situation, a classic you'll face every day, responding to, "How are you?" Picture this. You're in the office kitchen getting your first coffee of the day, and a colleague you know fairly well walks in. "Hey there," she says with a smile. "How are you?" The textbook answer, "I'm fine, thank you." And you, while grammatically perfect, can sound a little robotic. For a more natural and positive response, you could say, "I'm doing great, thanks." Ready for the weekend? How about you? This adds a nice personal touch. If you're feeling just okay, you could say, not too bad, can't complain. How's your week been? Or if you're busy, a very relatable response is, hanging in there. It's been a busy one. Hope yours is going well. Notice the nuance here. Saying doing great is upbeat and positive. A response like not too bad is very common in both British and American English and is slightly more reserved but still positive. Hanging in there signals you're a bit stressed, which can actually be a great bonding moment with a colleague. What you want to avoid, unless you're talking to a very close friend, is giving a long, detailed list of your life's problems. This question is usually a social pleasantry, a softball to start a conversation, not a genuine request for a deep analysis of your well being. Let's try it out right now. Imagine I'm your neighbor and we're both taking out the trash. I see you and say, hey, how's it going? Go ahead and give me a natural, friendly reply. Wonderful. Moving on to our third situation, let's talk about expressing gratitude for a small favor. You're entering a coffee shop and your hands are full. You're juggling a laptop bag, a coat, and your phone. Someone in front of you notices and holds the heavy glass door open for you. A simple thanks is okay, but we can do better. For a warmer, more appreciative response, you could say, oh, thanks so much. I really appreciate it. A slightly more informal and friendly option is, you're a star, thank you. Or, oh, thank you, that's so kind of you. The subtle difference is that thanks so much is a standard, warm response, while I really appreciate it emphasizes your gratitude for the action itself. You're a star is a lovely, informal compliment that makes the other person feel good. So you might have a little exchange where the person holding the door says, here, let me get that for you. And you could reply, oh, thank you. That's so kind of you. My hands are definitely full today. This acknowledges their kindness and briefly explains why their help was so needed. Now, what about expressing gratitude for a significant favor? This is our fourth scenario. Imagine your car won't start after work and it's pouring rain. Your colleague offers to drive you 30 minutes out of their way to get you home. This is a big inconvenience for them and a huge help for you. Your gratitude needs to match the scale of the help. As you get in the car, you could say, wow, I can't thank you enough. You're a total lifesaver. When they drop you off, you should reiterate your thanks. Seriously, I don't know what I would have done. I really owe you one. Using a common hyperbole like lifesaver shows just how much you needed their help. And I owe you one is a very important idiom that means you will return the favor in the future. It shows that you recognize this was a significant favor, not a small thing. In a situation like this, you must avoid a simple thanks, which would feel incredibly insufficient and might make you seem ungrateful. You need to show that you understand the sacrifice they made for you. Let's flip that situation for our fifth point. How do you respond when someone thanks you? Let's say you've just given your friend a ride and they say, thank you so much for the lift, I really appreciate it. The standard you're welcome is always correct and polite. But for small favors, there are other common and friendly responses like, no problem at all, or don't mention it. If you were genuinely happy to help, you could say, it was my pleasure, or a very warm, anytime. The nuance here is that no problem minimizes the effort on your part, making the other person feel less like they were a burden. My pleasure is slightly more formal and very gracious. making it perfect for a professional setting. Anytime is a warm phrase that indicates a standing offer to help in the future, which is great for strengthening a friendship. So if a friend says, "Thanks again for helping me move that heavy bookshelf," you can reply, "Of course, don't mention it." That's what friends are for, right? Next up, responding to a compliment on your work. You've just finished a big presentation, and your manager comes to you and says, "That was an excellent presentation. You really nailed the key points, and the data was very clear." Why it's crucial to accept the compliment graciously and professionally. You could say, "Thank you so much. I'm really glad it came across well." Another great option is, "That's great to hear. I really appreciate the feedback." You can also share credit if it's appropriate by saying, "Thank you." The whole team worked hard on pulling that data together. Saying, "I'm glad it came across well," shows that your intention was to be clear and you're happy you succeeded. "I appreciate the feedback" is a very professional response that shows you value your manager's opinion. And sharing credit is the hallmark of a good team player. A very common mistake to avoid is being overly self deprecating, saying something like, "Oh, it was nothing," or "I thought it was terrible, I was so nervous," can be awkward because it dismisses the manager's judgment and can sound like you're fishing for more praise. It's always best to accept compliments with confidence and grace. Similarly, how do you respond to a compliment on your appearance? You arrive at a party and the host greets you with, "Wow, you look amazing. I love that dress." A warm smile and a simple, "Oh, thank you. That's so sweet of you to say," is a perfect response. To make the exchange more conversational, you can add a small piece of information like, "Thanks so much. I just got it on sale. I was so excited to wear it." A classic, slightly self deprecating but charming response is, "Oh, this old thing? I've had it for ages." The key nuance is that sharing a small detail like, "I just got it on sale," invites a follow up question and turns the compliment into a mini conversation. And if you use the phrase, "this old thing," it must be delivered with a playful, lighthearted tone, not a genuinely dismissive one. Let's practice. I'm your friend. We're about to go out for dinner. I see you and say, "That's a fantastic new haircut." How do you respond in a way that is both gracious and conversational? Excellent. Our eighth situation is responding to an introduction. Your friend is with someone you don't know. She says, "Elena, I'd like you to meet my colleague David." "David, this is my friend, Elena." You reach out to shake his hand. The standard response is, "It's nice to meet you." To make it warmer, you can say, "It's so great to meet you, David." If your friend has mentioned him before, you can add, "Sarah has told me so many good things about you." When you're leaving the conversation later, you can say, "Well, it was a pleasure meeting you, David. Hope to see you again soon." Using their name when you say goodbye is a great way to help you remember it and makes the farewell more personal. The key things to avoid here are a limp handshake, avoiding eye contact, or a mumbled "hey." Confidence, a firm handshake, eye contact, and a smile are key to making a good first impression. Next, making a minor apology. You're navigating a crowded supermarket aisle and your shopping cart accidentally bumps into someone else's. No harm done, but it was a clumsy moment. A quick, reflexive apology is all that's needed. Perfect natural reactions are, "Oops, so sorry," or "Oh, excuse me." In a very casual setting, you might say, "My bad." "Oops, sorry." is a very common and natural combination. Excuse me is slightly more formal. And remember that my bad is very informal slang, best used with people your own age or younger. You wouldn't say it to your boss. You might find yourself in a situation where you accidentally step in front of someone reaching for a product on the shelf. You could simply say, "Oh, sorry about that. Go right ahead." And the other person will likely reply, "No problem." Let's reverse it for our 10th point, responding to a minor apology. Someone lightly bumps into you in that same crowded aisle and says, "Oh, I'm so sorry." The goal here is to immediately put the other person at ease and signal that everything is fine. The most common responses are, "No problem at all," or "Don't worry about it." A very reassuring and common one is, "It's all good." All these phrases essentially mean the same thing. No harm was done, and I am not upset. Choosing any of them, delivered with a small, reassuring smile, signals that the incident is over and forgotten. You'll want to avoid saying, "It's okay," with a cold or annoyed tone of voice, as your nonverbal cues are just as important as your words. And of course, avoid a sarcastic response like, "Yeah, you should be sorry," which would be considered very rude. Now for a more significant apology. Imagine you completely forgot about a coffee meeting you had scheduled with a friend. They call you 15 minutes after you were supposed to meet, asking where you are. Your heart sinks as you realize your mistake. Your apology needs to be sincere and take full responsibility. You should say something like, "Oh my gosh, Sarah, I am so incredibly sorry. It completely slipped my mind. That is totally my fault, and I feel terrible about this." Then you should focus on making it right. "I know your time is valuable. Can we please reschedule? I'd love to make it up to you, and the coffee will be on me." Using adverbs like incredibly and terribly strengthens the apology. The phrase, "It slipped my mind," is a common idiom for forgetting. Crucially, taking ownership with, "That is totally my fault," and offering to make it up shows respect for the other person. You must avoid making weak excuses or shifting blame. A comment like, "Well, I've just been so busy," can sound like you're minimizing their time and feelings. Own the mistake completely and honestly. In turn, when responding to a significant apology, you should be gracious. If your friend apologizes profusely for forgetting your meeting and they clearly feel bad, a gracious response shows understanding and preserves the friendship. You could say, "Hey, it's all right. These things happen. Please don't worry about it." To truly put them at ease, you could add a touch of empathy. Honestly, we've all been there. My schedule has been crazy lately, too. Let's definitely reschedule soon. Empathetic phrases like, "These things happen," and "We've all been there" normalize the mistake, making your friend feel less guilty. You are signaling that the friendship is more important than the mistake. Let's do a quick practice. "I'm your colleague. I was supposed to email you an important file yesterday, but I completely forgot." I come to you and say, "I am so sorry. I totally spaced on sending you that file. It's in your inbox now." How do you respond graciously? Perfect. Our 13th situation is politely asking for a small favor. You're in a meeting and your pen runs out of ink. You need to ask the person next to you, whom you don't know very well, if you can borrow one. Instead of a blunt, "Can I borrow a pen?" Oh, it's better to soften the request. You can use phrases like, "Excuse me, could I possibly borrow a pen, please?" Or, I'm so sorry to bother you, but would you happen to have a spare pen I could use? The phrase, could I possibly, is very polite and slightly tentative. Would you happen to have is a wonderful and considerate phrase because it acknowledges that they may not have one, which lowers the pressure on them. For example, you might say, excuse me, my pen just died. Would you mind if I borrowed one for the rest of the meeting? The colleague would likely reply, not at all, here you go. In response to that request, you want to be positive and willing. So, if you're the colleague with the extra pen, a cheerful and willing response is best. You could say, of course, here you go, or a more casual, sure thing. If it's a simple pen you don't need back, you can be generous and say, absolutely, keep it. I have plenty, sure thing, is casual and friendly, and offering for them to keep it is a warm gesture that makes the interaction even smoother. Another very polite and welcoming way to grant permission is the phrase, be my guest. Let's finish this section by initiating a conversation with a colleague. It's Monday morning, and you're in the office break room with a colleague from another department whom you'd like to get to know better. You're both waiting for the coffee to brew. A great way to start is with a shared, safe topic. Morning, Sarah. How was your weekend? Do anything fun? Is a classic for a reason. You could also make a lighthearted complaint about a shared experience. Phew, surviving the Monday morning traffic was a battle today, wasn't it? Or you can start with a work-related compliment. Hey, I saw your team's update on the new client. Look like a huge win. Congratulations. Asking about the weekend is friendly and open-ended. Commiserating over traffic can build camaraderie. And a specific positive compliment about their work is a fantastic way to start on a high note. The key is to keep it light, positive, and focused on shared neutral ground. So you should avoid starting with a heavy personal topic or a negative complaint about the company. Now we move into the heart of conversation, our second category, expressing opinions and feelings. This is where we share our perspectives, connect on an emotional level, and build deeper relationships. Mastering this language allows you to be a much more dynamic and engaging conversationalist. We'll begin with expressing strong agreement. Your friend says, I can't believe how good that new cafe's coffee is. It's the best in the city. You feel exactly the same way. You can go beyond a simple, I agree, and use enthusiastic phrases like absolutely or 100%. A very strong and common phrase is, you can say that again. To show you had the exact same thought, you can say, you took the words right out of my mouth. Absolutely is a great all-purpose agreement. The idiom, you can say that again, means you agree so strongly it's worth repeating. And you took the words right out of my mouth expresses a feeling of a shared mind, which is great for building rapport. You could also have a mini dialogue. If your friend says, this new season of our favorite show is just brilliant, you could reply, isn't it? I was worried it wouldn't live up to the hype, but it's exceeded all my expectations. This agrees and adds a specific reason, deepening the conversation. But what about when you only partially agree? This is a common situation where nuance is key. A colleague states, I think working from home is always more productive than being in the office. You see both sides of the issue. You need to acknowledge their point before introducing your own. You could say, that's a valid point, and the flexibility is great, but I do think there's value in in-person collaboration. Another excellent phrase is, I agree with you up to a point, but I find I miss the clear separation between work and home life. Or you could say, I see what you're saying. However, I think it really depends on the type of work you're doing. Phrases like that's a valid point show respect for their opinion. I agree up to a point clearly signals a nuanced view. The important thing to avoid is a blunt, you're wrong, which shuts down the conversation. The goal is to add to the discussion, not end it. Next, let's tackle polite disagreement. This can be one of the most challenging areas for language learners. In a team meeting, a colleague suggests a strategy you believe is flawed. They say, we should launch the new feature next week full scale. You think it's too risky. The key is to be respectful and non-confrontational. Instead of, that's a bad idea, try framing it from your perspective. I see it a little differently. I'm concerned a full-scale launch might be premature without more testing. Another approach is to offer an alternative. I appreciate the enthusiasm to launch quickly. What if we started with a smaller beta test to gather some data first? A gentle way to express doubt is simply, I'm not so sure that's the best approach right now. Saying I see it a little differently is a soft way to introduce a contrary opinion. Posing your idea as a what if question is collaborative, not combative, because it invites discussion. Let's practice. I'm your friend. I say, I think we should drive to the concert. It's only 3 hours. You know that traffic will be terrible and parking will be a nightmare. How do you politely disagree and suggest taking the train instead? That's a great diplomatic response. Now let's talk about expressing certainty. Your friend is worried that you forgot to buy the tickets for the movie, but you are absolutely sure you bought them. You need to sound confident and reassuring. You can say, don't worry, I'm positive I bought them. I have the confirmation email right here. For a more casual tone, you could say, I'm 100% sure. To be even stronger, you might say, there's no doubt in my mind. I'm positive is a common and strong statement. And of course, providing evidence like I have the email is the best way to resolve the issue. In a professional context, if your manager asks, are you certain you can meet that deadline? You could reply with confidence, yes, absolutely. I've already completed the first 2 stages, so I'm well on track. In contrast, we also need to know how to express uncertainty or doubt. Someone asks you for the name of the actor in a movie and you're not sure. It's always better to be honest about your uncertainty. You can say, I'm not entirely sure, but I think it might be, or I could be wrong, but I have a feeling it's. These phrases manage expectations and show humility. If you are truly undecided between 2 options, you can use the idiom, I'm on the fence about it. For instance, you could say, I'm on the fence about whether to take the job offer, which vividly paints a picture of being in the middle, unable to choose a side. Let's move to expressing happiness and excitement. Your best friend calls you with amazing news. I got the job. The one I really wanted. Your reaction should be effusive and match their energy. You could exclaim, oh my gosh, that's fantastic news. I'm so incredibly happy for you. Or, no way. Congratulations. That is amazing. You totally deserve it. When you're excited about something yourself, like an upcoming vacation, you can say, I absolutely can't wait to go. Or the informal, I'm so pumped for this trip. I'm so happy for you as a core phrase, but adding adverbs like incredibly or absolutely really amplifies the emotion. and saying you deserve it is a powerful statement that validates their hard work. You'll want to avoid a lukewarm, oh, nice, which can be perceived as jealousy or indifference. On the other side of the emotional spectrum, we also need to know how to express sadness or disappointment. A friend tells you, ugh, my flight just got canceled. I'm going to miss the wedding. Your immediate response should be empathetic. Oh no, that's awful. I'm so sorry to hear that. It's also important to validate their feelings by saying, you must be so disappointed. Oh, if you're expressing your own disappointment, for instance, if a concert is canceled, you could say, oh, what a bummer. I was really looking forward to that. Or, that's such a shame. Bummer is an informal but very common word for a disappointing situation, while that's a shame or that's a pity are slightly more formal. A short, empathetic dialogue might go like this. Your friend says, I didn't get into the program I applied for, and you could respond, oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. I know how much you wanted it. That's really tough. Next is expressing surprise or disbelief. Your friend, who has always claimed to hate running, tells you, so I signed up for a marathon. For genuinely shocking but positive news, you can say, you're kidding me, or no way. Are you serious? For something truly unbelievable, you might exclaim, I can't believe it, or I'm speechless. The nuance is that a phrase like, you're kidding me, can be used for both positive and negative surprises. Your tone of voice makes all the difference. I'm speechless is for a truly monumental surprise. After your initial reaction, your follow-up question is key. Wow, tell me everything. What made you decide to do that? Let's practice. I'm your roommate. I tell you, I just won a trip for two to Hawaii. What is your immediate shocked and excited reaction? Perfect. Now, what about expressing worry or concern? You see a friend who looks very tired and stressed. You want to check in with them. You should approach them gently. Hey, is everything okay? You seem a little down today. If they tell you about a problem, show concern by validating their feelings. That sounds really stressful. Or, I'm sorry you're going through that. Saying you seem a little down is a gentle way of showing you've noticed a change without being intrusive. The phrase, I'm sorry you're going through that, is incredibly validating. The most important follow-up is a genuine offer of support. Please let me know if there's anything I can do. A crucial thing to avoid is immediately jumping to offering solutions unless they ask for advice. Sometimes people just need to be heard and understood. Sometimes you need to express indifference when you don't have a strong feeling one way or another. Your friends are debating where to go for dinner. One asks you, do you have a preference? Italian or Mexican? If you truly don't care, you can show you're flexible and easygoing by saying, honestly, I don't mind either way, or I'm easy. Whatever you all are in the mood for. Another common one is, it's all the same to me. But be sure to deliver it with a smile so it doesn't sound dismissive. I'm easy is a very common, informal way to say you have no preference, and it helps make the decision-making process easier for the group. Finally, in this section, let's talk about expressing confusion. You're in a meeting and a colleague is explaining a new software process using a lot of technical jargon, and you get lost. Well, it's much better to ask for clarification than to pretend you understand. You can politely interrupt by saying, I'm sorry, I'm a bit lost. Could you explain that last part again? Or, I don't think I'm following. What do you mean by API integration? A very natural phrase is simply, I'm not quite getting it. Prefacing your question with, I'm sorry or excuse me softens the interruption. Being specific about what you don't understand helps them to help you. Admitting I'm not getting it is a sign of an engaged listener, not a stupid one. A quick example would be if a speaker says, so you just have to reroute the sub-level directories. You could interject with, sorry to interrupt, I'm not quite following. Could you walk me through what that means? That brings us to our third category, social interactions and navigating conversations. Think of these skills as the traffic rules of social interaction. Knowing them helps you navigate smoothly, avoid collisions, and ensure everyone has an enjoyable journey. This is about how to start, how to keep the momentum going, and, just as importantly, how to exit gracefully. First, initiating a conversation at a party. You're at a party where you only know the host. You see someone standing alone by the snack table looking approachable. You want to start a chat, but just saying hello feels a bit abrupt. The easiest and most effective way to break the ice is to use your shared context. You could say, this is a great party, isn't it? The music is fantastic. Or you can ask a question related to your shared connection. Hi, I'm Elena. How do you know Sarah, the host? You can also make a lighthearted comment about the food. I can't stop eating these little cheese puffs. Have you tried one? They're dangerously good. An observational comment is a low pressure, while a direct question about the host is a classic way to find common ground. What you want to avoid is a generic hello that goes nowhere, or an overly personal question right at the start, like, so, what do you do for a living? Let the conversation flow to that point naturally. Once you've successfully started a conversation, you need to keep it going. Imagine the other person mentions they just got back from a trip to Japan. The conversation could die here if you're not careful. The key is to be an active listener and ask open-ended follow-up questions. Don't just nod. Show genuine curiosity by saying something like, oh, wow, Japan. I've always wanted to go. What was the absolute highlight of your trip? Or, that sounds amazing. What was the most surprising thing you discovered about the food? While they are speaking, you can use small interjections to show you're engaged, such as, right, uh-huh, oh, interesting, or no way. Open-ended questions that start with what, how, or why are far better than closed questions because they encourage longer answers. A major mistake to avoid is conversation hogging. Don't immediately turn their story into a long story about your own trip. The formula for good conversation is to ask, listen, and then relate. Sometimes you need to interrupt politely. You're in a fast-paced team brainstorm and two colleagues are going back and forth on an idea. You have a crucial piece of information, a budget constraint, that completely changes the viability of their plan. You need a phrase that acknowledges the interruption while asserting the importance of your point. You could say, sorry to interrupt, guys, but I just have a quick point to add about the budget for this. Or, if I could just jump in for a moment, I think we're forgetting that the client specified. In a more urgent situation, you might say, excuse me for a second, but that deadline was actually just moved up. Sorry to interrupt is the standard polite formula, while if I could just jump in is slightly more assertive, but still collaborative. The key is to be brief. Let's practice. Your two friends are excitedly planning a trip for Saturday, but you just checked the weather. and there's a massive storm forecast. They're in the middle of debating which hotel to book. How do you politely jump in to warn them? Good, that's both polite and effective. Next, asking for clarification when you didn't hear something. You're in a noisy cafe and your friend is telling you a story. They say something, but a loud espresso machine starts right at that moment. You couldn't make out the words. You should be direct and polite. Sorry, I didn't quite catch that. It's a bit loud in here. A more informal version is, sorry, what was that again? You can also ask them to repeat just the last part, which shows you were listening. Sorry, you said you went where? Saying, I didn't quite catch that is a softer, more polite way of saying, I didn't hear you. Blaming the external noise makes it clear the issue isn't with their speaking. A common mistake is to just say, what, with a questioning intonation, which can sound abrupt. And never just nod and smile if you didn't understand. But what if you heard the words but didn't understand the meaning? For instance, your boss uses a business idiom you've never heard before, like, before we proceed, we need to make sure all our ducks are in a row. You have no idea what this means. It is always better to ask than to misunderstand a key instruction. You could say, I'm not familiar with that expression. What does getting our ducks in a row mean in this context? Or, could you put that another way for me? I'm not sure I understand. A great professional phrase is, just to make sure I'm on the same page, could you clarify what you mean by that? Using this phrase frames your question as a desire for alignment and clarity, which is a sign of a diligent employee, not a sign of weakness. Changing the subject is another crucial skill. The conversation at a family dinner has turned to a political topic that is making everyone uncomfortable and tense. People are starting to get heated. You need to pivot the conversation to safer ground. A smooth transition is best. Try to find a weak link to a new topic. Speaking of passionate leaders, that reminds me, Sarah, I wanted to ask you about the charity event you're leading. A more direct but still polite method is to say, on a completely different note, has anyone seen that new historical movie that just came out? The simplest way is to wait for a brief pause and say, anyway, and then launch the new topic with enthusiasm. Speaking of which, or that reminds me, creates a bridge that makes the transition feel less abrupt. You should avoid a jarring change without any transition, which can be disorienting and rude. Now, for dealing with an awkward silence. You're on a first date or a coffee meeting with a new colleague, and the conversation just stops. There's a long, awkward pause where you can both feel the pressure. You have two options: acknowledge it or ignore it. To acknowledge it with humor, if the mood is lighthearted, you could smile and say, well, this is an awkward silence. No pressure, but I think it's your turn to say something brilliant. A safer bet is to simply ask a broad, open-ended question like, so, have you got any exciting plans for the upcoming holiday? Or, tell me about a project you've worked on that you were really proud of. Having a few emergency questions in your back pocket is a fantastic strategy for these moments. The best questions are open-ended and about positive topics. Let's talk about giving constructive feedback. Your colleague asks you to review their report. It's good overall, but there are several sections that are confusing and need significant work. You need to be honest without destroying their confidence. You can use the sandwich method. Start with a positive, deliver the criticism constructively, and end with a positive. You could say, "Thanks for sharing this with me." I think the introduction is really strong and it sets the scene perfectly. I did find myself getting a bit lost in the methodology section. Perhaps we could add a few more concrete examples to clarify the process. I think that would make the whole report even stronger. But overall, the conclusion is fantastic and it's a really solid piece of work. Phrasing the criticism as a collaborative suggestion is more effective than a direct command. And being specific in both your praise and your criticism makes the feedback much more valuable. Be sure to avoid only pointing out the negative parts, which can be very demoralizing. In the reverse situation, you need to receive feedback gracefully. Your manager is having a performance review with you. She says, "Overall, you're doing great work, but I'd like to see you being more proactive in team meetings and sharing your ideas more often." Your goal is to show you are open, coachable, and receptive, not defensive. The best response is, "Okay, thank you for that feedback." That's really helpful to know, and it's something I'll definitely work on. To show you're taking it seriously, you can ask for specifics. "I appreciate you pointing that out. Could you give me an example of a situation where I could have contributed more, just so I have a clear idea?" Thanking the person for the feedback immediately signals maturity and professionalism. You should avoid getting defensive and making excuses. A response like, "But I do talk in meetings. It's just that no one listens," will make you seem difficult and unwilling to learn. Finally, in this section, let's cover ending a conversation gracefully. You're at a networking event and you've been talking to one person for 10 minutes. You need to move on and meet other people, but you don't want to be rude. You need to give a clear but polite closing signal. Start with a concluding phrase like, "Well, it was so great talking with you and learning about your work." Then state your intention. "I'm going to grab another drink before the speaker starts, but it was a pleasure to meet you." It's also great to mention a future connection. "I'll be sure to connect with you on LinkedIn." Enjoy the rest of the event. The opening well often acts as a conversational signal that you're about to wrap things up. Providing a reason for leaving makes the exit smoother. Let's do a quick practice. You're on the phone with a friend who is very talkative. You need to go because you have an appointment in 10 minutes. How do you politely and kindly end the call without making them feel cut off? That's a great way to do it. Now we move to our fourth category, reacting to news and information. Life is a constant stream of news, big and small, good and bad. Our reactions to the information people share with us are fundamental to our relationships. Responding with the right level of enthusiasm, empathy, or interest can make people feel valued, heard, and connected to you. Let's start with reacting to big, positive news, like an engagement. Your best friend calls you screaming with excitement, "He proposed! We're engaged!" Your reaction must be effusive and match their high energy. You should exclaim, "Oh my gosh, are you serious? That's the most incredible news. Congratulations to you both. I'm so thrilled for you." You must then immediately ask for details. "Tell me everything. How did he do it? Let me see the ring." Using phrases like, "Oh my gosh, it's incredible news," and adverbs like so thrilled amplifies your happiness for them. A major mistake to avoid is a calm, flat, "Oh, that's nice. Congratulations." This would be a friendship-damaging response, as it would signal jealousy or a complete lack of interest. For smaller, positive news like a promotion, Your response should be warm and validating. If a work colleague you like tells you, hey, just wanted to let you know I got the senior manager position, you should respond with, hey, that's fantastic news. Congratulations. That's brilliant. A powerful addition is to say, it's so well deserved. You've been working so hard for this. The phrase well deserved is a huge compliment because it says you have seen their effort and you believe their success is earned, not just lucky. A mini dialogue could be your colleague saying, I finally finished that certification course. And you replying, that's great. I know you were putting in a lot of hours on that after work. You must be so relieved. This shows you remember their struggle and can share in their relief. Next, reacting to big negative news like a job loss. A friend calls you, their voice trembling, and says, they just had a round of layoffs at my company. I I lost my job. Your immediate reaction should be one of shock and empathy. You should say, oh my God, no. I'm so sorry to hear that. That's just awful. The next step is to focus on them, not the situation, by asking, how are you holding up? Are you okay? Then offer unwavering support. Listen, I'm here for you, whatever you need. Seriously, just call. The first reaction must be emotional support, not practical advice. Phrases like, that's awful, validate their feelings. You should avoid immediately saying, don't worry, you'll find something better. While well-intentioned, this can feel dismissive of their current pain. Empathize first, strategize later. For smaller, frustrating news, a simple, validating response is all that's needed. If a friend texts you, ugh, my train is delayed by an hour. So frustrating, you can reply, oh, that's so annoying. Or, ugh, what a pain. You can add a bit of sympathy. Hope you get moving soon. Words like annoying, frustrating, and a pain are perfect for these low-stakes negative situations because you are simply mirroring their frustration. Another example would be a friend saying, I just spilled coffee all over my white shirt and I have a big meeting in 10 minutes. And you replying, oh no, that's the worst. What a terrible time for that to happen. Now for reacting to shocking or unbelievable news. You're having coffee with a friend and they say casually, by the way, I saw a famous movie star at the grocery store this morning. This calls for playful disbelief and excitement. You could say, get out of here. No way. Who was it? Or, you've got to be kidding me. That's insane. Did you talk to them? Get out of here and get out of town are common informal idioms that mean I don't believe you in a friendly, excited way. The key is to immediately ask for more details. Let's practice. I'm your friend. And I tell you, you know that lottery ticket I bought last week? I just checked the numbers and I won. What is your immediate jaw on the floor reaction? Yes, that's the energy. When reacting to neutral or interesting information, your response should show that you were listening and appreciated it. If someone shares a fun fact, like, did you know that octopuses have 3 hearts? You could say, oh, that's really interesting. I never knew that. Or a more informal, how about that? You can also turn it into a question to show genuine curiosity. Really? Why do they need 3? Asking a follow-up question is the best way to show you're genuinely interested. For example, if a colleague says, apparently the new coffee machine also makes hot chocolate, you could respond, oh, dangerous. I didn't know that. I'll have to try it out. While a friend is telling a long and dramatic story, you can use phrases to encourage them to keep going. As they pause, you can interject with phrases like, and then what happened? Or, oh my gosh, don't leave me hanging. Or simply, wow, that's wild. So what did you do? These are called continuers, and they are active listening cues that tell the speaker you are invested in the story. Don't leave me hanging is an idiom that means don't stop in the middle of the story. A blank stare should be avoided, as the storyteller might think you're bored. Sometimes you need to react with skepticism. A friend known for exaggerating tells you, I caught a fish this big, while holding their hands 3 feet apart. You can express your doubt in a playful, teasing way. Oh, really? Are you sure it wasn't this big? While holding your hands even further apart. A common phrase is, I'll believe it when I see it. You can also say with a smile, I think you might be exaggerating just a little bit. Your tone of voice is everything here. It needs to be light and humorous, not accusatory. A quick example, if your friend says, I'm definitely going to start getting up at 5 a.m. every day to go to the gym, you could laugh and say, sure you are. I'll give it a week. When you are asked for your opinion, it's often good to buy yourself a second to think. If your manager turns to you in a meeting and asks, Elena, what's your take on this proposal? You can start with a phrase that acknowledges the question, such as, that's a good question. Let me think about that for a moment. This is a subtle compliment to the asker and gives you time to formulate your thoughts. Then you can state your opinion clearly. My initial reaction is that, or the way I see it, the main advantage is. This frames your opinion as a starting point, not a final, unchangeable declaration. Now for reacting to an offer of help. You're struggling to carry a heavy box into the office and a colleague says, Hey, do you need a hand with that? If you need help, you should accept graciously. Oh, would you? That would be a huge help. Thank you so much. If you don't need the help, you should still decline politely. That's very kind of you to offer, but I think I've got it under control. Thanks, though, when accepting phrases like huge help or lifesaver, show strong appreciation. When declining, it's crucial to still thank them for the offer. And when reacting to an invitation, for example, a friend asking you to dinner, you should accept with enthusiasm. I'd love that. That sounds like fun. What time? To decline, be gracious, and provide a soft reason. Oh, that sounds amazing, but I'm so sorry I can't make it on Saturday. I have a prior commitment. I'm so bummed to miss it, though. Oh, it's always a good idea to suggest a future plan, like, but please let's catch up really soon. You don't need to give a highly detailed excuse. A prior commitment is sufficient. Expressing regret by saying, I'm so bummed, shows that you wish you could go, which softens the rejection. Our final section for today begins our look at handling awkward or difficult situations. This category is arguably one of the most challenging, but also one of the most important for demonstrating high-level social fluency. Life isn't always smooth, and knowing how to react in these situations with grace is a true superpower. First, responding to a customer complaint. Imagine you work in retail. A customer comes to you clearly upset and says, I bought this shirt here last week, and the color completely faded after one wash. This is unacceptable. The first step is to listen and validate their feelings. Do not get defensive. You should say, I'm so sorry to hear that. I can see why you'd be frustrated. This immediately de escalates the situation. Then shift to a solution oriented mindset. Let's see what we can do to make this right. Do you have the receipt with you? We can certainly offer you a full refund or an exchange. Phrases like, I can see why you'd be frustrated, show empathy and tell the customer you are on their side. Taking ownership by saying, let's see what we can do, makes you an ally, not an adversary. You must avoid blaming the customer or making excuses for the product. Your first job is to fix their feeling of frustration. Next, forgetting someone's name. You're at a conference and you see a colleague you've met several times before. They walk up to you with a big smile. Elena, so great to see you. And your mind goes completely blank on their name. It happens to everyone. The best strategy is to be honest, humble, and a little self-deprecating. You can say with a warm, apologetic smile, I am so sorry, I'm having a complete brain freeze right now. Please tell me your name again. The phrase brain freeze is a common and relatable idiom that takes the pressure off. By admitting your own fallibility, you make the situation much less awkward. It's far better than fumbling or avoiding them. A smooth tactic is to ask a person you do know to reintroduce the person you've forgotten. For example, John. Great to see you. I'm so sorry, I'm blanking on your friend's name here. Could you remind me? And our 50th situation for today is responding to unwanted advice. You're casually mentioning that you're feeling a bit tired lately, and a well-meaning relative launches into a long lecture. You need to be drinking green smoothies every morning, and you absolutely must try acupuncture. You want to be polite but firm. A great neutral phrase is, thank you for the suggestions. I'll definitely keep that in mind. This acknowledges their input without committing to anything. You can then change the subject. I appreciate the ideas. Anyway, I wanted to ask you about the phrase, I'll keep that in mind, is a polite way of saying, I have heard you and I will now stop this conversation. It is a gentle but clear boundary-setting phrase. You should avoid getting into a debate about why their advice won't work for you, as this will only prolong the unwanted lecture. And that brings us to the halfway point and the end of part 1. We have covered an incredible amount of ground today, exploring the first 50 reactions you'll need for more fluent English conversations. We've gone from simple greetings and thank yous all the way to expressing complex opinions and handling the beginning of some tricky social situations. I hope you'll take a moment to let these sink in. Choose just a few new phrases that you found helpful and try to use them this week. The more you actively practice, the more natural these reactions will become. Be sure to join me for the next video, part 2, where we will complete our journey. We'll pick up right at situation 51 and cover everything from handling rude comments and comforting a friend to all the functional phrases you need to organize your life. And finally, a deep dive into casual and slang reactions. You won't want to miss the conclusion of our masterclass. What was your favorite reaction from today's video? Please share it in the comments below. I'd love to hear which ones you are excited to try. If you found this video helpful, please consider giving it a like and clicking that notification bell so you'll be the first to know when part 2 is released. I am Elena, and it has been a pleasure being your guide today. Keep practicing, and I look forward to seeing you in our next video.